Section 2.5, ratios, percents, and multiplying and dividing real numbers. So we're going to start out with percentages. I'm not going to do a ton with percentages in this section, just kind of get used to them, see how to convert in and out of percentages, and we'll return to them later and do more with them. That'll be in later chapters. So we're going to start off with the definition of percent, and percent literally means for each hundred or per each hundred. So when you see a percent, you should literally translate it as a divided by or over 100. And if you do that, that would actually help you to see how the conversion works. So let's look at 91%, and they want us to switch back and forth here. If we're in percent, go to decimal and vice versa. So if we just followed this definition, 91% means 91 over 100. And if you were to bring in the calculator and do 91 divided by 100, you get 0.91. And that always works the same way, which is to say that if you divide by 100, the decimal goes from where it was to 2 spots to the left. That's always the case. So let's jump down here to 3.8%. It means 3.8 over 100, but you don't need to pull the calculator in. You just need to move that decimal 2 spots to the left. And the first move would make it go past the 3. When you move it again, there's nothing there. So you have to put a 0 as a placeholder in that spot where the second move would have been. And you can kind of think about if you moved it back, 1, 2, that's where it was before. So you want to make sure you always move it 2 spots because you're dividing by 100, which has these 2 zeros. So it's not move it to the front, it's move it 2 spots. Sometimes that'll be to the front, sometimes not. But you need to move it that many regardless. And then I talked about right here, like to check this, we could just move it back 2 spots, and it turns out that's what you want to do if you want to convert from a decimal to a percent. This one is already a decimal. If you want to make it a percent, imagine moving that 2 spots to the right, which would be 8, and then put the percent symbol back on. 0.089, 2 spots to the right, that would be 8.9, and then put the percent symbol back on. So going from percent to decimal or decimal to percent is always a 2 decimal place move. When you do this one, it's 2 to the left because you're dividing by 100 and the percent symbol goes away. When you're doing the opposite, it's 2 to the right because we have to do the opposite of before, and make sure you put the percent symbol back on there. So here's the book summary of that process. If you're converting from percentages to and from decimal numbers, to write a percentage as a decimal, remove the percent symbol and divide the number by 100, which will have the effect of moving the decimal 2 spots to the left. To write a decimal number as a percentage, you want to multiply by 100 because you want to do the opposite of up above, and that will have the effect of moving the decimal 2 spots to the right, and then make sure you remember to insert the percent symbol. Typically when I do these, I just think about the moving the decimals, and in stat I do this all the time. In fact, mentally it just almost happens automatically for me. When I see 0.08, I kind of think of it as 8%. When I see 3.8%, I'm thinking 0.038. So you want to get really fluent with this moving back and forth. So try and get it to a point where it almost becomes natural. You don't want it to become a pure memory thing though, or it doesn't make sense to you. So remember, the reason we're moving 2 places to the left is because we're dividing by 100. The reason we're dividing by 100 is because it's per cent, like per division, cent like century, 100. All right. Let's see a quick example where we would use this skill. Find 6.4% of 3,500 cars. So what we want to do is just translate this statement. And when we do math with percentages, we tend to make them decimals first. So 6.4%, move that decimal 2 spots to the left. That would be 0.064. And then of means times, and 3,500 cars. I like to use the asterisk for multiplication because if I put a dot right there, it gets confused maybe with the decimal point. This is what calculators and computers do these days, so it kind of makes sense there. And speaking of calculators, I do want to bring it in here. I could do that multiplication by hand, but I don't want to. So 0.064 times, notice it does an asterisk, 3,500, which is 224. You don't have to use the asterisk, but again, if you use the dot, you got to be careful not to mix it up with the decimal. And you could also use parentheses around the 3,500, but I don't really like to use parentheses when they're not absolutely necessary, because I like to think of why I need those parentheses, which we'll talk about more in the next section. And then we should put units on this too. It's 224 what? It was 224 cars. All right, so not much there with percentages, moving in and out of percentage form, and then moving to the decimal form if you're going to do some math with a percentage. And again, we'll come back to that in later chapters.